promises that you make to us and the comfort that you give in times like this. Bless this group, bless this food. We pray through Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Go after him and ask him a few questions. So I figured he was going to give me a big long line of what normal young men do, about stories about why he can't read the Bible or why he couldn't make it to church or stuff like that, but he didn't. He really impressed me. He told me he was reading his Bible. He told me he did believe in God. And one of the things that really impressed me was his ability to respond faster than I could really get the questions out of my mouth on where are you headed from here. So he already knew that he was going to have an afterlife. So if there was any doubt in any of your minds whether or not he was saved, he was. And this is just recently. This was probably a few months ago, Miss Donna. Maybe less than a year. But the reason I bring this up is because he would probably want to use this format right here to make sure that each and every one of you guys have the same gateway to heaven that he's got. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to give you an opportunity. If you're not saved, I suggest you look into getting saved. John 3:16, God forever loved the world and gave his only begotten Son, for those who believed in him would not perish, but live everlasting life. So we're celebrating life here on earth, but I believe he's celebrating life in heaven. Now guys, I'm a firm believer that this is what he would want you to hear. I believe that he was doing just that. I believe no matter his wealth or his position in life or his health, he was still living a life of love. He was doing what God told him to do. He was loving the people around him. He loved me in a short period of time that I knew him. He showed me love. So, no matter the wealth in your life or your health in your life, we're all going to end up in the same place. The question is, where do you want to end up? And now you can make a change. You have a chance. Now, the rich man doesn't have the chance anymore. No matter how much money you have or how high up on the ladder you think you are, you're not getting into heaven except through Jesus. So I suggest, if you don't know God, or you think you know God, because there's a whole ton of churches around here with people in it that actually think they know God, but they don't. I would suggest you start making a change in your own lives. And that's what I have to say, because I believe that's the message he would send to you had I died and he had the opportunity to spend this time with you guys. You guys are the closest people to him. He loved you more than anybody. So use this as an opportunity. Use this story as an opportunity. Use his celebration of life as an opportunity to make some changes in your own lives. See where you're at. Recognize where you're at. Remember when I told you the road's narrow? It's narrow, guys. And these are, look out the window. If you don't need God now more than ever, then you're not looking out this way.
And I hope that everyone in this room got to see what a good heart he has. And that he is truly a loving person. And Kreg didn't give that away freely. That was something that he was choosy with, and he had one of the best hearts that I will ever know. And I could not have been more blessed to be a young parent with someone who was so caring and attentive. And he never stopped, and one of his proudest things was our son. And I'm forever grateful for that. But he was one of my best friends besides that, because I grew up with him, I think, from 11 and up. So I was the annoying friend that was actually best friends with Jennifer, and then we just ended up having a kid later on. So, and even then I was the annoying friend, but I talked to him the day before he passed away, and he couldn't have been more proud of our son, and I couldn't be more proud of how he turned out, and Kreg did help me do that. He was a very loving person. So if y'all are here, that has to mean that he loved y'all, because we wanted to make sure that this room was filled with people that truly knew his heart, not just what he wanted someone to see. You know, he knew how to work and get the job done and move on to the next one, but when he really cared about you, you knew that. So I'm happy that everyone here got to see the person that I saw, the person that helped me raise such a wonderful kid. And I appreciate you all being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. She's gonna do it.
That's for you, it's done. Okay, so I'm Stacy. Kreg, Kreg was a very, very good friend of my family's and me. He lived on our property for about a year and worked for us for a long time as well. And I remember people would always ask how Kreg ended up living randomly at the back of our property. And I tell people, you know, he was, we had, through a friend of a friend and my sister, he came to work for us, and we ended up firing everybody that was doing it except for Kreg, because he was so honest and he worked so hard and he could figure anything out. And he was staying in this old rickety camper at the back of the property before we moved in. And then we moved in and he was still there. And a year later, we were just all happy. He became part of our family. And I loved him very much. I called him my boy best friend. And my kids adored him. He was funny. He was honest. He was hardworking. He talked very highly about you, Lindsay, and y'all's amazing son, and very much so about his mama. He loved his mama. And we had a lot of fun stories to share, but most of them were too inappropriate to share. So we loved him very much, and we were really grateful to be a part of his life. So.
Appreciate that.
Good job. Yes.
Good. Anybody else care to say anything? Anybody?
I will definitely
Okay.
say something. Okay, so I've known Kreg, I don't even know how he was, but 10 years ago. Yeah, probably. Oh, this is gonna be hard. I grew up with our family. My brother was his best friend. But Kreg ended up being like my little brother, and all through his 20s, he lived with me, stayed with me in my apartment. When I got married, he moved in with me with my husband. I had my children. He was their uncle. I had so many times that he was there for me. And when I was struggling through my own issues in life, he always called and checked on me. He stood by me through everything. There was many times that we talked about. Well, one of the first times we had his son was at my house in Tomball. And I remember he spent the whole weekend in the room. He didn't want to share him with anyone. And they watched monster trucks movies like the whole time he was in there. And he came out maybe twice, but he was such a good dad. He was so loving. And I have some of those pictures that are on that video are from the collection that I have with him over the years. And he never, oh God, Miss Donna, you already know how much you love you. I can't, there's no words that can even say that. You were everything to him. And I know he called and checked for you all the time. And you try to go there as much as possible. He was so good. A couple of days before he passed, my regular thing was to constantly check on him. Literally, almost every day I sent him a message. And sometimes he responded and sometimes he didn't. But I have no doubt he knew how much I loved him. The last message I sent, if y'all don't mind if I read it, because I just think it was kind of God's peace, or giving me a little bit of peace, because I didn't know what was about to happen, but I knew he read this message, because he told me he loved me. Trust in me in the midst of a messy day. Your inner,
That's Melissa.
I keep saying that to him. There are quite a few, wait, there are quite a few of you. Oh, it is, okay. So, they are much safer with me than your clinging hands. Oh, okay, here it goes. Entrust your loved ones to me. Release them to my protective care. They are much safer with me than in your clinging hands. More than any of his other sons. and treated him with special favor. So Joseph's
things here, but whenever Lindsay said that it wasn't easy to get there with Kreg, I think that that's right. And I've known the family that has been like my second family since I was probably 11 or so. And it wasn't until 5 years ago, whenever I had Grace, or I didn't even have Grace, whenever I got the blessing of being Grace's mother, whenever Kreg reached out to me, and he did throughout the years, don't get me wrong, he always, we always checked on each other. He would always text me from a random phone number or a new Facebook and ask how I was. So he was definitely like a brother. But 5 years ago, he reached out, and I wish I had that message, but he wrote a long thing, and at first I didn't think it was Kreg. It took me a second. But he said, I hope this doesn't sound corny. And he basically shared his heart and opened it up to me. And it was very sweet. And he thanked me for what I was doing. And then he asked if he could meet her. And I said, absolutely. And she is your niece, and she will always be. And one thing from making this video and just reminiscing throughout the time of his passing is he loved babies. Yes, he did. I was like, did I already add this picture? Like all these different babies, and that's so true. I think he had a heart for the youth and for his own son, for sure, his little twin. But he loved Abby, and he loved everybody. But it wasn't easy to get close to Kreg. I was the one that wasn't easy for him, just saying. But all jokes aside, he really did have a big heart. And at the end of the day, I know that he did love God, and I know where he is. And so and I know he loved his mom. And so that's for sure. But that was what I wanted to share. Thank you, Roxanne.
No one.
So you got to be a winner.
We have to see who's going to be the winner. Oh, you take me and go for a ride.
Say
Banana.
cheese. You crazy.
Banana.
Gracie, we're going to let our balloons go whenever we stay, okay? Be careful. What, is that for real?
Alright, on the count of three, guys, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Woo! We love you, Kreg.
We love you, Greg.
That's pretty.